Can I ask you to take your seats, please, ladies and gentlemen? Please take your seats. Your judges are seated and waiting, and our presenters are waiting. So if you could take your seats, please, that would be lovely. Those that are presenting, there are tables down here for our presenters. So those that are presenting, if you care to be seated at these tables, that'd be wonderful. So you've got quick access to and from the stage. Thank you. So if the last few could take their seats, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Plenty of seats over here, ladies and gentlemen. There's more seats over here. 1, 2 seats there. And I think we might need to bring some additional chairs in as well by the looks of things. So more of you have turned out than registered by the looks of things, which is great. So thank you very much indeed for coming. Welcome to the 14th annual EEGR Awards, ladies and gentlemen. Great to have so many of you here this afternoon. You're going to hear some fascinating, insightful, and I think creative new ideas and stimulation for the energy sector in the UK, and particularly in the east of England. These are all indigenous products that we've come through this region. Some of them have been used for the first time in this region that come from outside of the UK. But you're going to hear some innovative and new ideas and creativity. Just to say, I have a few slides for you in terms of what's happening. A quick safety brief, just to say that there is Wi-Fi here today. Username is Q Hotels, and log in as a guest there. It asks you for some information, and then you can get online there for you. We are doing the old Twitter thing today. So it's #EEGR Awards. If I could also just mention to you as well, as you can see, there's a gentleman at the back of the room filming you. Just to say that if any of you object to being filmed, or if anyone doesn't want any of their presentations shown at all, then please let us know so we can make sure that's removed from the feed, which is going out on YouTube a little bit later on. And then we'll be on the EEGR site and the EEGR YouTube account as well. It's worth saying there are no fire alarms planned at all for today. The exits are all very clearly marked. As you can see, you've got green running man symbols throughout the room, so just follow those. And the assembly point is actually out the front of the hotel, near the big tree there, out the front in the car park there as well. Facilities, the loos are just outside the doors here, just outside the main doors. They're opposite where the reception was in terms of where you signed in. And can I ask you all, please, if you'd be so kind, we'd love you to tweet and do that kind of stuff, but if you could turn your mobiles onto silent, that would be wonderful if that's possible, please. So please turn your mobiles onto silent if you would be so kind. One thing we have to say is that without our sponsors, there's no way we could put this event on. So we're really indebted to our sponsors for supporting these wonderful awards. And it's so great to see so many of them stepping up to the plate and assisting EEGR in terms of ensuring that we can put this event on each year. So can I thank Peterson's, Vattenfall, Scottish Power Renewables, the Oil and Gas Authority, Galloper Wind Farm, ECITP, Baker Hughes GE, I have to say Baker Hughes GE now, because they're now a new company, a new merged company, and GeForce. So ladies and gentlemen, can we have a round of applause for our sponsors? Now, no pressure here, but just to say that no pressure at all, but for those people coming up here to present, it's worth saying you have 8 minutes to present. Now, I know 1 or 2 of you have about 27 slides, so how you're going to do that in 8 minutes, I really don't know, but that's going to be interesting for you. Down here, you've got a screen which is glowing green when you're okay to speak. Then it starts flashing red after 6 minutes, which means you've got 2 minutes left to present. And if at the end of 8 minutes you haven't finished, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get up onto stage and pull you off the stage because you're going to finish within 8 minutes. We then have 2 minutes of question and answer from the judges. Judges only can ask questions, and each of the judges will have a question relevant to your particular presentation. So, A few bits and pieces from me as well, just to say that I'm just trying to look for my right slide here. Just to say a few bits and pieces in terms of future events that are coming up for EEGR that I'd like you to note for your diaries. If you've still got your phones turned on, you can enter them into your diaries now. The next one coming up, the 18th of October, is EEGR's House of Commons reception. Got great interest in this. It's our opportunity to raise the profile of our region in the very heart at Westminster. So the corridors of powers will be open to us for just one afternoon on the 18th of October. So do make sure you book for that if you haven't already. And we certainly hope to have a senior minister there, and I'm working on that quite hard at the moment. On the 9th and 10th of November, we have National Offshore Wind Week, and that's the East Anglia event, and that's at Orbis Energy in Lowestoft, who hosted us so well for the last couple of years. Great event. It's free to attend, but you do have to register, and registration will be opening early next week for that on the EEGR website. There's a drinks reception on the evening of the 9th, and then on the 10th, we have a number of presentations, industry-wide presentations the next day, and we'll try and get everyone away for just after lunchtime on Friday the 10th. On the 29th of November, we have our Skills for Energy event. This is primarily targeted at post-16 individuals looking at trying to break into the energy sector. And a great new venue for that. We're having that at the International Aviation Academy in Norwich. And for those of you that haven't already been to that, it's quite an amazing place. They've got a full-sized jet aircraft and 2 helicopters planned to be in there as well. So a great venue for that. And I think so far, I can't see Gemma. Gemma's out at reception. But I think we've got something like 18 companies registered for that who are explaining to youngsters how they can get into the industry. And again, I'd like to thank Skills for Energy and Gemma Head, who leads that, for putting on such a fantastic event there as well. 28th of February and the 1st of March sees SNS 2018 at the Showground in Norwich. Much like today, we've seen various different weathers over the different years we've been there. This event last year, we had a golf match prior to this, was burning hot. I think it was 34, 35 degrees last year. This year, it was raining and cold. And the same with SNS in March. We've had burning hot days there and snow on the ground on other days. So this is your program for the day. We've obviously been through arrivals registration. Brief welcome from me. You're going to see the order of the running order for these presentations. We have our Late Life and Decommissioning Value to Industry Award first up. Offshore Wind, Best Regional Contribution to Local Content Award. A Refreshment Break. Skills for Energy Award. Innovation Award. Trade Apprentice of the Year Award. Southern North Sea Rejuvenation Collaboration Award. And then we have a drinks reception for those that are booked in for dinner tonight. And for those that's joining us for dinner tonight, we go out this door, down the stairs to a marquee, and a drinks reception will be held in there while the judges evaluate their findings. And whilst they do that, we'll be enjoying ourselves with a drink downstairs. Then we come back up as they transform this room for the dinner this evening. And then we're looking at the awards dinner starting from 1900 to 2300, and then Carriages at 2300. So I think that gives you an idea and a flavour of what's actually going on during the course of the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first category is Late Life and Decommissioning. And our 2 finalists are, in your programme, you'll have a programme in front of you. If you look there, it lists all the various different awards that we have there. And the first one is Late Life and Decommissioning Special Interest Group Value to Industry Award. And I believe this is pronounced Bison. Is that correct? B-I-S-N, Bison, is that right? B-I-S-N. So B-I-S-N are first up on stage to present. So, ladies and gentlemen, come on to B-I-S-N and their Well-Lock M2M project.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. My name is Jeff Folks with BISN. I'll talk to you a little bit about sealing solutions and how they can be applied to late life and decommissioning in this group as well as around the world. So what we do at BISN is we use a bismuth-based alloy. We take it down whole, we melt it in situ on electric line, and then we create down-hole metal-to-metal gas-tight seals. So I'll explain a little bit how we do that through the presentation. So first off, why do we use bismuth? So you can see here, When it's in the liquid form, it has a viscosity very similar to water. So basically, it can flow anywhere in the well that water can flow. It can flow through sand screens, it can flow through microannuline cement, flow through perforated holes. Basically, anywhere that water can go in your well, it can go. Excuse me. It also has a specific gravity of 10, which means it's very heavy. It can displace all your wellbore fluids. It does not need to be pumped, circulated, or squeezed, making for a very easy formation sealing solution. So it's also corrosion resistant. It's not affected by H2S, not affected by CO2. So basically what that means is suitable for all downhole environments. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to corrode. It will outlast all the completion metals that are currently in the well. Lost it. So lastly, sorry. The biggest thing that makes it a good sealant downhole is it actually expands, unlike any other metal, when it solidifies. So if you think of water, when you put it in a freezer and the expansion of it, that's what creates a gas-tight metal-to-metal seal in the well. We take it down whole, we melt it, we control how it melts, where it melts, and then allow it to solidify and expand and capture that expansion to get a gas-tight seal. So the idea of using bismuth is not new. Actually, the Schlumberger brothers in the 1930s applied for a patent to use bismuth for all the qualities I've just explained to you. What they were doing that did not quite work, and why everybody over the last 80 years has been unsuccessful doing so, is they were trying to use electrical heaters. Electrical heat does not generate enough heat to get it to melt, to flow in the well, to solidify, and to control that process in order to get the expansion you need in order to seal. So we use a chemical reaction thermite heater, which is non-explosive. Again, it's run on electric line. You can run it in, and it takes 240 volts, 60 milliamps, just like a wireline set bridge plug or perforating gun. So no special requirements required. But all thermite is, if you're not familiar, is iron oxide, aluminum powder. So again, non-explosive, can be transported anywhere in the world via DHL, anywhere else. So the resultant product of that is aluminum oxide, a liquid iron that turns solid, and then extreme amounts of heat. Again, we use that heat in order to start the melting of the bismuth and control the process. So this is our well lock M2M based technology. It can be utilized in many facets of the well in sealing, but what we use it for specifically in this is late life wells, trying to increase production in wells, and then decommissioning also, abandoning wells, trying to get a gas tight seal so that over the life of the well and after the well is done, you don't have to worry about going back and remediating the well. So these are some of the tools that we do. Again, we have many products here that we've taken this technology and adapted it to. For this specifically, we have the TS, which is essentially a well lock bridge plug. So you take it down whole, you melt it, you create a gas tight seal. So we have, could be run inside tubing, run inside casing, depending on the size you need. It has a higher expansion ratio than conventional bridge plugs do. It has a higher pressure rating than your typical inflatable packer does, and it can be gas tested. So we've gas tested these week-long tests up to 5,000 PSI with helium. If you're familiar with helium, it's a very light element, and cement can't block helium, elastomers can't block helium, but ours, because of the expansion of the properties, will. This is a graph of a recent one we've set in offshore Norway. So the scenario was they had a bridge plug and they had cement in the well. It continued over, that blue line there was a negative pressure test over a 2-day period where the well built up with gas pressure over 1,000 PSI, near 90 bar. And the orange line was after they'd set our tool in the well, and that was over the same 2-day period. As you can see, no increase in pressure in the same scenario. That tool has been in the ground for 5 months now. They're doing a long-term study on it, and it's yet to build any gas pressure to date. So as far as the late life of wells, trying to increase oil production, we were asked to look at this and see if we could shut off a water-producing lower zone of a well. On the left there is the conventional method, setting bridge plugs inside the screens, baffling the flow, but not really stopping it from coming to surface. We were challenged to see if we could get our alloy to flow out the base pipe, out the screen, and then actually seal off the annular space as well, completely shutting off the flow of water from the zone rather than just baffling it. And this was the result of that. So if what you're looking at there on the left-hand, well, both sides, but the left-hand side was our first test. That's a 5.5-inch base pipe with a wire wrap screen, 200 micron. We ran inside that. We activated the heater, melted the alloy. It flowed out through the sand screen production, mixed with the proppant in the annulus, and actually created its own base and sealed off the entire annulus. This has been run commercially in 3 different wells, improving water cut by more than 50% in all the wells, as well as increasing production of over 5,000 barrels of oil a day in those three wells combined. So another one is our STC. This is something that can be run inside casing. It's basically replacing cement and annulus to get a gas tight seal. So if you're looking at it as a balance plug, you can run this, perforate the casing as you would, or tubing as you would in a regular balance plug scenario, run in, melt the alloy, allow it to flow out the holes, and seal off both the tubing and the annular space as well. So this can be done in cemented annuli, as you see here, through microannuli and cement if you have a sustained casing pressure in a cemented annulus. Or it can be done in a completely open annulus. And if you see on the right-hand side of that picture, that's where it forms its own base. Because it's a eutectic metal, it doesn't go through a gel phase. It goes from liquid to solid. As soon as it goes past its melting point, we use that, capture that, and ensure that we have the right amount of heat with the wellbore fluid to make sure it doesn't run down your well and actually gives you a solid seal. This particular one was also run back in April in the North Sea, and we pressure tested this one to 5,000 PSI. It was a 4.5 by 7-inch annulus. And the final product I'm going to talk about here that we have, I'll go back, is our MXD. This is for through tubing applications. You can run inside a small through tubing or restriction, and you can actually seal inside large annuli outside of the completion string, down in a lower casing. We do this one a little bit differently. The other tools I talked about, we actually cast the alloy on the outside of our heater. We run it in, we melt it. In this case, to get higher expansions and take more alloy down hole, we actually make it in a small shot pellet form. We carry it down in a baler, and we run it down, open the baler up, allow it to fall into our shot catcher, which is at the bottom of our tool, and then activate the heater to create a seal. This is an example of the first test we've done. This was a 2 7/8 OD tool. We set it inside of a 7-inch casing, and we achieved a 7,000 PSI hydro test and a 5,000 PSI test with gas. Some new developments we're coming out with is larger sizes to be able to handle larger well bores. We can actually take a 3.5-inch OD tool, and we can seal inside of a 16-inch ID casing. And we're also getting into removable heaters, which we've run our first test on today successfully. And the reason for that is for basically NORSOC requirements, where you have to have a single material plug across all annuli. And that is it. Any questions?
Scott, a round of applause for Scott. Thank you. And do our judges have any questions, please? And we need a microphone down the front here, please, for our judges, if that's possible. PA guys, can I have a microphone down the front here for the judges, please? It's all right. Our microphone is arriving.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very easy question. Thanks for the presentation. It's very informative. When we talk about value creation in the context of well abandonment, have you got an impression of how much you're actually saving per well that you can plug and abandon using your technology or technique?
Well, the most recent example we had was they were trying to abandon the well, and they were running the STC, or the annular seal, and they were unable to get a seal with cement. So their next step was to pull the entire completion on a $500,000 a day rig that was going to take them about 8 days.
Okay, so is that a significant saving per well from your perspective?
Correct.
All right, thank you very
And
much.
there's also a few other things. Sorry, not to cut you off, but
Please go.
the alloy actually is running whole. It's melted. It sets up in a matter of minutes. So it takes about 3 to 10 minutes. We usually give it about an hour just to make sure everything is good. So when you compare that with rig time of waiting on cement for 12 to 24 hours, another savings there.
Significant savings.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any more questions from the judges? If not, oh, there is one.
And again, thanks for the presentation, really informative. Just one question then for you. How long have you been developing your technology?
So the beginning of development was 2010. We basically were an R&D company until about 2016, at which point we went commercial, and to date we have 23 tools in the ground on a commercial status.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, we'll need to move on to our next presentation. Thank you very much indeed. Jeff. Okay, next up, you can see in your brochures there that the next presentation we have is from Peterson's. So we've asked Peterson's to come to the stage. And we're going to hear about their UK Southern North Sea Centre of Excellence. After that, ladies and gentlemen, you also see these on each of your tables. These are your voting forms. You need to look at each different category and decide which of two, and there's two in each case, which of the two you think is the best. So, ladies and gentlemen, Peterson's, UK.
First, see how this works. Yeah, my name is Ron van der Laan. I'm Regional Director within Peterson. Together with Veolia, we have established a collaboration, a partnership where Peterson is concentrating on energy logistics supply base and where Veolia is doing the waste management, decontamination and demolition of offshore platforms. We won a collaboration award for this in 2012. We do the whole onshore process from the complete loading till the waste management, including the green report for our clients. In 2014, we saw Great Yarmouth as a prime location for the Southern North Sea to do decommissioning. Not only for the UK side, but there are also opportunities to do it for the NL side, as the sailing time is much shorter to Great Yarmouth than the south of the Netherlands. It's all designed for environmental care. We have a split between the sides you see on the left-hand side and the wash bay you see on the right-hand side. Also the sewage for that is split, so the waste streams are split. The wash bay we use for decontamination of norm and mercury polluted materials. We have the site completed at the end of 2016 together with Peel. In 2017 we had a stakeholder engagement where we invited, as well as the press, the local authorities and other companies within the Great Yarmouth or Norfolk area, because we're really focusing on using local content for the work we do. I'm going to take you to the project we did last summer together with Carriages. This was a 1,000-ton topside and a 700-ton jacket. Arrival date for the topside was the 11th of July and the jacket about a month later. This is the first large-scale decommissioning project for Great Yarmouth, and it was delivered on the hook, direct to the quayside by the Carriages Tuckcliffe 4. On the hook offers significant cost benefits because you remove the barge requirement, you remove the grillage requirement, you don't need to do sea fastening offshore, and you remove the barge loading onshore, which is a massive cost saving, but also you spend less hours offshore, so it's also a safer and a cheaper solution. There are a couple of points you need to take into account. The topsides are fitted on the bottom of the transition pieces, which are 7-meter long tall legs. They have a high point load for the quayside, which is difficult to run with. It's unsuitable for transport onshore. It's also unsuitable to do your demolition with it during that. And there's one safety issue. You can't cut the transition pieces on the hook because you then work under a suspended load, and that's a safety issue. So this is the challenge. You see the platform on the hook at the Tuckcliffe 4. And the other picture, you see the transition pieces we need to take off because before we can take from the quayside to our decommissioning path. The solution was to build a large level set-down tower to carry the load, a 1,000-ton load, and then cut the transition pieces from the top side. The challenges were the strength and the stability of the towers, the quayside loading spread. Also, there was a lot of camber on the quayside, not only this way, but also the other way around. So we really needed to level that. It's the structural strength of the topside itself. But the most important thing was we needed to build something which you can use repeatedly because when you remove cost from offshore and you add cost on onshore, then it doesn't make sense anyway. So this was our solution. And when you look at the picture, you see that it's modular built. And it's built from a decommissioned pipeline of the northern North Sea, which we transported from Lerwick up to Yarmouth. So this is really, when you talk about circular economy, this is circular economy. Local content, so local companies has helped us to cut the pipe in pieces and weld it with plates so that we can use it as a modular system, up to 7.5 meters. Every block is 1.5 meter. So for all the next projects, we only need to know how long the transition pieces are, and we can use the system and build like it a project fit for purpose for every project. You see the layers. There is what we do with the load spread, and it is also how we fix the camber on the quayside so that it's leveled at 0%. Together with Boskalis, we had to do a lot of engineering from offshore. We have taken all the meshes from offshore so that we were able, we needed to know the center of gravity. We needed to know the measurement and where to place the towers. Finally, we mounted cribs on our excavators, and we had some guys working from an extended platform with cutting torches, cutting the legs. So here is where you see the towers, and we don't paint them because then you can see that it's circular economy. And this is the cost-effective engineering. We just put it down, and when you see the small platform, it was only 2 centimeters from one of the pillars. So really the guys offshore and onshore, they did a lot of engineering work, and it worked out quite well. We did the same with the jacket. We put it on the quayside and then moved it with our SPMTs to the decom pad, also using the modular system, but we only had to use one block. So with this, we think it's a faster, a cheaper and a safer solution, and it will unlock the potential for the UK Southern North Sea Centre of Excellence in Great Yarmouth. That was 8 minutes not breathing.
Ron, well done. So judges, I hope you have a microphone in front of you. If not, can we have a microphone down the front here, please? Thank you. And one is coming, I believe. And can we leave a microphone on the judges' table? I think would be sensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is it working?
I think you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. Really interesting presentation. You mentioned this was the first time this has been done, if I understood you correctly. Obviously, you probably know exactly how much it costs, but I wonder how much sort of potential you see for cost reduction in decommissioning if you were to do the same operation, 4, 5, 6 times in the future.
Well, for example, this time we needed the Boskalis shear leg vessel some longer than it used to be because we also needed to test it, so we used it for about 10 hours. Normally we can use it for about 4 hours because from the high stillage we need to put it after removing the transition pieces to the low stillage. So you need the shear leg vessel for that, but you save time offshore. And as we all know, time offshore is much more expensive than time onshore.
I had a question about local content. You touched on that a couple of times. Can you just expand on what you're doing and what the local benefits are, please?
Sorry?
Local content.
Local content, okay. There is a lot of local content. There is a lot of knowledge with regards to the steel processing. So the scrap processing will go to a local company. All the things we need to produce to engineer will be done by local companies. So we use as much as possible local content for this.
Okay, that's the end of the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron van der Laan. Okay, trying to keep things moving along here. Next up, we have James Fisher Marine Services, and this particular category is for offshore wind. It's part of our offshore wind special interest group, and it's looking at best regional contribution to local content. So it's best regional contribution to local content. And the first one up is James Fisher Marine Services. I think it's Martin Myhill-Sisley.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Martin Sisley. I'm the Managing Director of James Fisher's Renewable Services. So, a little bit of history. James Fisher is a shipping company from its birth way back in 1847, started by the chap there on my left with the impressive sideburns, a chap called James Fisher. He's no longer with us, but we retained the name. In about 2008, the company decided that it needed to diversify out of just shipping and started acquiring various companies. And I've listed a couple here along the timeline that are relevant to the renewables sector. They include diving companies, blade repair businesses, and survey companies. So where did it all start locally for us? It was in the Orbis Centre. Thank you, Katie. I see you at the back there. So what did we have? We had an office on the 3rd floor, 2 desks, a couple of Martins and a John, Best, hi John, and a few laptops. But we had one idea. The idea was to have a local, renewable-based company that could service the requirements of what we could see at the time, a growing market, and we thought it was really important to be based in the area. The intent was to be able to offer construction services right through the O&M phase. You probably can't read all of those things on there, but it's one of those circles that captures all of the capabilities. That was supposed to go right through. So we were already based in the east of England with a couple of our other subsidiaries. Some of you may have heard of a company called Fendercare, which is based in Seething near Loddon in Norfolk. As it stands today, we're generating about £30 million worth of revenue out of east of England. Not all of that is renewables, but you can see Rotos, the James Fisher Subsea, and James Fisher Marine Services are very much offshore renewable businesses. We decided about a year ago that because we were spread all over the UK, all over the East Anglia, we had places in Norwich, Yarmouth, Lowestoft, Seething, that it would be worthwhile to bring everyone together into one location. And we looked around at what was available, and Lowestoft was a location. We ended up taking what was the AKD building in Lowestoft. So, commitment in numbers. As it stands, we have 80 full-time JFMS employees in the region. 90% of those are local, and nearly 50% of those live in Lowestoft or Great Yarmouth. We've had 6 internships over the period, and we've developed our offshore wind management system, a software package in Lowestoft, and the development team is based here. As part of the offshore wind management system, we're currently controlling or monitoring 66 vessels and over 3,700 people working on a development. These guys are being tracked daily out of Lowestoft. Beg your pardon. It's horrible reading loads of numbers, isn't it? We've probably executed well over 250,000 hours offshore out of the Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft area without notable incident or accident. We've recently been providing emergency rescue teams on the Gala project, and we've been activated 5 times. We've been credited with saving one man's life who'd had a brain clot. A little video about why we went into Lowestoft. Okay, so that's the location in Lowestoft where all of our diving and ROV equipment that we use across the whole of the UK and some of the projects that we manage overseas is stored in Lowestoft. Thank you for your attention. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Martin. So over to our judges.
Martin,
hello.
Martin, thank you for your presentation.
Pleasure.
You very clearly told us about the start of the two guys in the office, and you very clearly showed us the end result. But we didn't get any insight from you on maybe some key achievements, some key challenges along the way that got you to where you are.
The key challenge actually was initially I mean, this is specifically about local content, so it was actually finding an office that with a warehouse side by side with enough space to get everybody in and all the equipment. That was a hell of a challenge in terms of keeping it local. There was a lot of pressure from other parts of the UK to take our kit and people to those locations.
One more question.
Martin, you've clearly taken on a lot of people in the last couple of years. Is there any one particular skill set that you've found more difficult than others to recruit?
Yeah, guys with off-tow experience has been particularly difficult, to be honest with you. They seem to be quite thin on the ground and hard to retain. They tend to hop, skip and jump a little bit. They've been quite difficult to get hold of. But other than that, we've been quite successful. We were absolutely firm from the offset that we were going to employ as many local people as we can. And I think that's actually worked in our advantage, to be honest with you. But the off-tow guys are the only chaps.
Thank you, judges. Ladies and gentlemen, Martin Myhill-Sisley.
Thank you.
Well, we've got one more presentation before the break. So next up on stage we have JDR Cables, and JDR will be presenting their 66 kilovolt inter-array cables. JDR Cables.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Jeremy Featherstone from JDR Cables, and I'm going to talk about local content in 66 kV cable development. So just a very little bit about JDR before we talk about the project itself. We're a manufacturer of umbilical systems and power cable systems, so our roots are in the oil and gas industry, but today 3/4 of our turnover is actually in the offshore wind industry. So our products go through from the deep water, dynamic applications, up the continental shelf and into the shallow water where all the renewable activity is. And as I was saying, our roots are in the deep water stuff, but more recently we've moved into the wind side. We have two factories in the UK, one in Littleport in Cambridgeshire, and that was the original basis of the company, but that enabled the success of that facility enabled JDR to create a quayside facility in Hartlepool, which is now where a large proportion of our work is done. We also have a design office in Cambridge, which is where the product development group for the whole product range that JDR make is based. So why 66 kV? So array cables have been 33 kV for many years now. It's the one thing that has been relatively standard. But as turbines have increased in size and the size of individual wind farms have increased in size, this has pushed a need for greater level of voltage. So if we just look at the graphic on the left-hand side, this is a 64 turbine wind farm connected by 33 kV, and then the right-hand side is by 66 kV. And if I just add in the cables connecting back to the offshore substation, you see that on the left-hand image there's a lot of length, and in the right-hand image we've reduced the number of cables right down. So this is really the primary economic driver of 66 kV. It reduces the length of array cables in a field between 20 and 30%, simplifies the whole offshore substation layout. But of course, 66 kV is a high voltage rating, not a medium voltage rating. So there's quite a lot of technology development in order to step up the voltage. And we didn't want to go to a very expensive, traditional high voltage mentality. We wanted to extend medium voltage technology up to high voltage, keep the cost down, keep the same manufacturing processes, avoid over-engineering, but at the same time we needed to demonstrate lifetime reliability through accelerated aging tests. So the design and the development of this project was run from the JDR Cambridge office. Manufacturing was in Poland and the northeast of England, but there was a good local content for the east of England too. We built, this is the, I won't go into the technical details of it, but this just shows the qualification sample that was built originally started in 2015. Testing was completed in Chelmsford at Global Marine, the tensile test facility there. Another company who supported this in the area is DNVGL and out of Lowestoft, who coordinated third-party inspection throughout the whole process, both in the UK and in Poland. We also worked, the JDR Littleport facility was also heavily involved in development. Here we show a repair joint which was assembled and developed at JDR Littleport in Cambridgeshire. And the tensile testing for this item was done at Servitec in Lowestoft. Electrical testing was done up in Blythe in Northumberland, but again that was supported in fact by some jointing technicians who came from this region. And just as a few concluding points on this, we completed the technology development and full-size wet age testing last year. This has led to our first supply contract with Vattenfall on the Aberdeen Bay project. So it's a relatively small project, but a very important project, the first 66 kV project for us. And as I speak now, the first cable lengths on that have just completed factory acceptance testing. And the second supply contract has been the East Anglia 1 project, and you can't get much more local than that. That's a very significant, large project, locally, 714 megawatts, and the production of those cables will be starting next year. Should also add that the design is now ready and available for 66 kV floating wind projects. So this has been a great story of a successful development leading quickly into commercialization. The local East of England content, the supply chain has enabled this, and it will lead to future work both in and out of the region. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope that's been of interest.
Well done, you managed to do it within time as well. Congratulations. Judges, any questions?
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. Great presentation, thank you very much. Just a question, you talked about the things that were done locally. Can you give me a bit of a flavour of the kind of skill sets that you actually use from the local East Anglian market?
Okay, so I think from East Anglia, I mean, if you look at that presentation, actually, it has been more the traditional mechanical engineering skills that have supported that from this area. If we were, the electrical side of it has probably been tended to be done more in the northeast of England. But obviously we want to use, particularly in development testing, facilities as near as possible to where we're working. So if we want to carry on using test houses and facilities in the east of England wherever we can.
Is there a follow-up question? Pass the microphone.
Great credit to you, Jeremy, in terms of, as you say, started off in subsea and now you've transformed into renewable energy. But turning back again to subsea and the subsea factory and subsea processing agenda, if you like, how does your technology play into that? And more generally, what's your competitive edge here compared to what everybody else is doing?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. In recent years, I say our focus has probably been, from the development side, has certainly been on renewables. If you look at the long-term trends in oil and gas, I think some of them are very similar. You know, it's increasing electrification, it's increasing remote control. The 66 kV technology I described there is something that we want to introduce and would be a very economic introduction into power umbilicals, for instance. And so we're looking for where we can feed that into the oil and gas industry as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Featherstone, JDR Cables. Okay, we're about to go into a quick refreshment break. We'll just say your voting slips, you should have all those in front of you. By now, you should have a preference in 2 categories so far. So take your voting slips and put your preferences for the 2 projects so far. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a quick refreshment break. If I can have you back here at 20 past, please. 20 past back in here. Many thanks. Thank you.
got curves like a sculptor made it. They say she got it from her mama. I don't care, I'm just captivated. From her eyes, I can tell she keeping secrets in her mind. But let me in, baby, maybe we can speak what's on your mind. I like your small waist, expensive taste, and your lips incredible. Style impeccable, skin out but respectable. Y'all know the kind that I mean. Walk in the room, don't make a scene or a spectacle. Louis Vuitton clutch, complimenting your Tigers. Your jeans damn near painted on the apple cider color phone case. I noticed that when it was up by your face. Who said there's no accounting for taste? You're like a rock star without a stage or an entourage in me. I'm the manager to take you far. Cheers to you, cause you got it together. Cheers to us, will be a million times better. You feel me? And I think she coming home tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady. Body tight and it looks so good. I think it's on tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady. Body tight and it looks so good. No man could ever turn away, let alone resist. Temptation when it comes to you, miss. They must persist and pursue. I know you mad tired of them lames. What the fuck they be doing? These niggas ruin the game. You laugh at them with your girlfriend. Yeah, your circle's small. You did the crew thing, found out it wasn't worth it all. Your independence is a must, but baby, trust. We all need somebody that's a compliment to us. Spinning it like you own it, in and on your opponents. Them other chicks know the deal. It feel good, don't it? You're the reason artists write songs and paint pictures. I want you with the lights on, grabbing the fixtures. This ain't a game that I'm spitting. In fact, I dare somebody to challenge this pack when it's written. Cheers to you, cause you got it together. Cheers to us, will be a million times better. You feel me? And I think she coming home tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady. Body tight and it looks so good. I think it's on tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady. Body tight and it looks so good. And I think she coming home tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady. Body tight and it looks so good. I think it's on tonight. She moves so sexy around me. Think I'm gonna make her my lady.
I'm coming back to you, just like before. I've been a lonely boy since I walked out your door. If there's a life or lies, I don't know, but I can live like this anymore. The time I spend alone has nothing again. It's repetition. I'm coming back to you. Repetition. The only thing I can lose. repetition. I'm coming back to you. Sometimes I feel I've got you. Run away, I've got you. Get away from the pain you drive into the hurt of me. The love we share seems to go nowhere, and I've lost my light. For I just and turn, I can sleep at night. Once I ran to you, now I run from you. This tainted love you've given, I give you all a boy could give you. Take my tears and that's not nearly all. Tainted love, tainted love. Now I know I've got you. Run away, I've got you. Get away, you don't really want any more from me. To make things right, you need someone to hold you tight. And you think love is to pray, but I'm sorry, I don't pray that way. Once I ran to you, now I run from you. This tainted love you've given, I give you all a boy could give you. Take my tears and that's not nearly all. Tainted love, tainted love. Don't touch me, please, I cannot stand the way you tease. I love you, though you hurt me so. Now I'm going to pack my things and go. Once I ran to you, now I run from you. This tainted love you've given, I give you all a boy could give you. Take my tears, and that's not nearly all. Tainted love. rags to riches are so the Syria. I gotta keep pushing for the fortune and fame. It's still not game when it's just a game treated like capital crime. Everybody's doing their time. Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? Oh, take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? Captain American stone on board now. He's a gorgeous dude with a broken heart. You sir, turn me around and take me back to the start. I must be losing my mind. Are you blind? I've seen it all a million times. Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? Oh, take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home?
It's complicated, it always is. It's just the way it goes. It's like the way it is so long for this. I wonder if it shows. And underwater now I can breathe. I've never felt so good. 'Cause I can feel it coming over me. I wouldn't stop it if I could. Well, I've changed over, yeah. You know you can't deny. Well, I've changed over, yeah. 'Cause something's here tonight. Give me a reason. I got it. Do you feel it too? Can you see me here all alone?
Ladies and gentlemen, could I ask you to start taking your seats now, please, ladies and gentlemen? Could I ask you to start taking your seats? Judging will start again in 2 minutes' time. Thank you very much.
Now love me right, like I know you can, and we could lose it all. Well, I've changed over, yeah. You know you can't deny. Well, I've changed over,
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you to take your seats, please. We're starting in about 30 seconds' time. If you take your seats, please, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being so prompt. I think we've had a few extra people join us during the tea and coffee break. So obviously, these are the voting forms. You can't vote on the first two categories, obviously, if you weren't here. But obviously, we're looking forward to having your votes for the other categories that are coming up later on this afternoon. So thank you for coming back so promptly. Just to say that we're now on for the next award, which is the Skills for Energy Award finalists. Two of these today, Best Proactive in association with the Ogden Trust and the Royal Academy of Engineering, and ProServe, the ProServe Academy. And first up, we have Best Proactive, Ogden Trust and Royal Academy of Engineering, represented by John Best. Ladies and gentlemen, John Best.
Well, learned judges, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I have just 8 minutes to tell you a long story, so let's get on with it. In essence, this starts with Sir Peter Ogden, who very nearly 20 years ago came from a disadvantaged background, set up a business, became a doctor, found a love of science, sold his business, and put some of that money to one side to create the Ogden Trust. This is what we've done with some of that money. Clearly not develop a clicker. Anyway, the young lady in the picture is Felicity Levitt, or Flick as she's known. An interesting person because 500 days ago she knew absolutely nothing about what she's doing today. But in those 500 days, I'd like to tell you a story through Flick. A young lady in engineering, a very underrepresented group, and I think it's really important that we can tell the story through young people, but particularly recognise some of the skills that young women can bring to the industry. So, there's a background, 6 little stepping stones, just to take you backwards, because that's the way I work, all the arrows point the other way. I was a STEM ambassador, Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths ambassador, looking for a job. It's a voluntary role, and I got involved with Pakefield High School through the Lowestoft Engineering Project. And my thanks to Anthony Vaughan Evans, who helped to get that going. Also, my thanks to Judith Masters in the room, who's been an absolutely stalwart throughout. The Royal Academy of Engineering took its learning for the Lowestoft Engineering Project from Barrow-in-Furness. Coincidentally, and thanks for my warm-up video, which I wasn't expecting, is where the James Fisher organisation began 170 years ago. The James Fisher organisation, or PLC, actually has 25% of its shares owned by the Sir John Fisher Foundation. And they use the proceeds of those shares to put back into the community at Cumbria. Unbeknown to me at that point in time, they were funding the Barrow Engineering Project. The Ogden Trust also came into the picture then, and the dots began to join up. So, learning from the Barrow Engineering Project, a marine community on the far west coast, we started to share some learning with Lowestoft and Yarmouth on the far east coast. The Barrow Engineering Project had started with younger people up to secondary age. The internship project was designed to be able to give young people experience of work. There's a subtle difference between work experience and experience of work. I'd like to take you now through the next stages. Anybody who was at Offshore Wind Week last year in November would have been absolutely knocked and bowled over by the presentation given by Joel and Richard, two fantastic young people, 17-year-old, and they took an audience by storm. 200 people were in awe of their skill. They were part of our initial 5, as was Flick. It was deemed to be a good idea. Let's get on with it. Bestie, can you help? So I drew a picture on an A4 piece of paper. I put 4 colleges at the top. I put about 35 businesses at the bottom, and then rolled the sleeves up, and we got to work. So the champions, which I think were really important in each of the colleges, 2 of which merged during the process, were the people and the interface with the students. Their intimate knowledge of their skills, what they wanted and where they were, was hugely helpful. I just went around and banged on doors, cajoled, challenged, was tenacious, and I found people that then genuinely wanted to participate. All such projects need to be managed, but I managed it with a very simple couple of spreadsheets. This one looks at the logistics, so we were able to track everything that was going on, and there's a similar one with the finances. So we have the finances, we have the companies, and we are on our way to delivering an energy internship scheme. In year 1, we had 5 students. In year 2, we had 25, overall 30 students. Unfortunately, 3 didn't quite make the mark, but those 3 were individually mentored and talked with as an exit interview to try and understand where their challenges were. I do still think that a 90% success rate for a relative new project is pretty impressive. People always ask, well, what's the numbers? It's too expensive to train. Why should we train? Hang on. In 2017, at 20 days, that's 500 working days added through 25 students. If we took a broad salary of 20,000 and 20% on cost, we've added £50,000 into the industry over 2 months. If you considered that each of these students, in a way, was on an extended interview, it would cost you nearly £1,000 just to put an advert in the paper. So in round terms, I've said there's £75,000 worth of value added into the industry. And the total costs, including my time, what we've paid the interns, and their travel costs, because no student will be disadvantaged by where they lived. Some walked, some biked, and some got over £300 towards their petrol costs for getting in. And so, where we have it, the results. From the college champions, they believed that this was a fantastic result for getting their young people into business. From the host companies, they believed that it gave them something of true value. This is one of the projects. Evie's over there. If you want to get in, you can have a brochure signed today. And when she becomes famous, it'll be worth a lot of money. Please do. And from the students, without doubt, I think that every single student gains something from this. And I'll pick a quote there. It's fair to say that before I completed the internship, I had no true idea of the value or importance of this industry in my hometown. As mentioning, I said that we were also working with the West Coast. We took our learning from the East Coast and we shared it back with the West Coast. 5 of the students have completed internships out of Barrow and Finesse. And so my last slide brings things to a head. Why talk about an interview? Well, when I phoned up for a completion certificate, one said, we can't give you one, we're keeping the person on. They're doing an apprenticeship. Another one, after 20 days, said, we found someone locally who can code. It's brilliant. And let me end my story with Flick. 500 days ago, she was meant to do geology at Kiel. This week, she's just completed a 6-week study tour, working with the University of Strathclyde, with the doctors there, on a field trip to the Isle of Lewis, looking at the engineering stresses in a kite wind system, funded by the Ogden Trust. Thank you.
So, judges, any questions for Mr. Best?
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. Very interesting. What plans do you have to monitor the destinations of Ogden internships? So, you know, to make sure that the internship has had the desired effect, i.e., they're taking in careers within STEM industries.
Thank you. You've clearly seen my notes for tomorrow with Claire. We'll be discussing the alumni program. It'll be light. These things are about keeping people connected, because actually what's really impressive to me is Flick is now acting as an ambassador for young people who are studying STEM. So we will keep track of them, they will be called upon, and they will become ambassadors and potential employers of students in the future.
John, fantastic initiative, and you're to be congratulated together with everyone involved. Where does it go from here? How do you create this a sustainable
Again,
practice?
you've seen part 2 of my notes for Claire tomorrow. We're going to be talking about 40 internships next year. I'll tell you that tomorrow. But I think it's important that we don't grow like Topsy, but we believe that it should be 20 each year. They should be competitive places. They should be places that people want to go for. I'd like to think that actually also the businesses in 2018 will be competing to have an internship at their business. It's an exemplary thing to do. I'll be over there if anybody wants to join up.
Thank you. John Best, Energy Internship. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And after that question from Andy Payne of Vattenfall, I better point out that this particular category is actually sponsored by Vattenfall, so thank you, Vattenfall, for that. Next up is ProServe, and we're looking at the ProServe Academy. ProServe Academy, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Peake. I work for ProServe. I'm a local lad. I've been with ProServe in many of its forms beforehand, working in Great Yarmouth now for 20 years. And I'm very much a product, really, of what we now call the ProServe Academy, but has been developed over many, many years as we come on. So I just want to tell you a little bit about ProServe itself. ProServe is an energy service company. We work offshore. We do control systems, subsea control systems, also topside control systems. And involved in that is many skills requirements. It has lots of different disciplines that we have to train, we have to coach people on, and we have to nurture them through. So hydraulics, electronics, electrical work, software engineering as well. And then we're taking that offshore. So we're doing design of that, we're doing assembly, we're doing testing, and then commissioning when it gets into the offshore environment. So that's a broad scope in which to cover. And we do that through what we call the ProServe Academy. And really, what we're trying to do with the ProServe Academy is nurture that culture of people to learn within themselves, to sort of bring themselves up, to develop themselves in those skill sets to work their way through the company. Rather than bringing people in who have those skills from outside, we want to develop that internally. And the Academy is all about that. Like I said, it's been running for many years. We now call it the ProServe Academy, but it's the way we are. It's the way we've been brought up, the way we've developed ourselves going forward. And it's all about having the voice of everybody within the company. It's not about me lecturing to everybody who works in our company. It's based in Great Yarmouth locally, where we have nearly 190 people there. But it's not about me talking to them. It's not about even the management team. It's about everybody mentoring everybody else and developing that structure through. So it's all about that teamwork provision that comes through there. And it's done with online material. So you can access this material, look at it, and put stuff in there as well. It's completely open. Anybody can put stuff in, and it's all self-monitored from the people who work with it. There are internal webinars where people discuss and listen locally. There are regional development champions as well, people champions, who look after this and help develop these people through. And that works through a competency and leadership program so that everybody can start working together. Like I say, everybody within our company is a leader in some form. They may be in the workshop, they might be just mentoring other people, but their attributes, their attitudes, leads other people through. They have influence, and these skills are very important for that. And it starts with apprenticeship. So we have over 50 apprentices in the UK. 18 of those are in Great Yarmouth. And like I say, that's about 190 people at the moment. So nearly 10% of the workforce are actually currently in their apprenticeship. And it's been going for many years. So we've had 23 apprentices already graduate from the scheme. So that's on top of the 18 already in there. And you can see a graph there of the numbers of people we're talking about. And most of those people stay within the company. Most of those young people stay, they develop, and they grow. And this is really great to see, because we've got people who have come through the apprenticeship scheme. They've developed into engineers, they've gone into other areas, and then one in particular is now, he's gone from the workshop floor as an apprentice into engineering, been very successful in engineering, and has recently accepted a sales role of all cases. And for an engineer to move into sales, that's a big jump, in Kuala Lumpur, where he is the only salesman. That is a huge step for someone to take. And just one example. We've got others that are now working offshore in commissioning, and some that are moving into engineering, some that are moving into leadership themselves on the shop floor. So a really great scheme which has developed these guys. They're able to monitor their own competencies. So we set up this framework within the academy. It's got all the tools there. It's got set levels where the guys can measure themselves and operate towards those levels and become competent in the skills that they know. So they know where they need to go. They know what they have. They know where they need to go. They know how they can develop themselves. It's all part of them driving the process through. And an example, this information is all open to them. So they can see what they have. This competency matrix has clear objectives, clear levels in which they can progress in. So everybody working through this, and it's not just our apprentices, this is the entire workforce who work through similar schemes. So this is for a technician competency, but we do it in engineering as well, through several of these schemes. When we get into engineering, we're not just looking for graduates. I'm a great believer that engineers, great graduates coming in through engineering, but also people who have come from the shop floor, who have been offshore, who have had their hands on tools and really worked with some of this equipment through the apprenticeship schemes out of colleges, gaining their qualifications as they go to become engineers. So two routes into engineering, one very academic and one very much vocational based through the work that people are actually doing on their tools with the products that we're supplying. And with engineering, there are a huge number of skills and competencies which they gain. So we're measuring the competencies again in engineering, and everybody can see this in these areas. And they have then this framework of competencies and skills where we're measuring all these over 300, nearly 400 different skill sets through a range of disciplines that people can measure themselves against, see how far they need to go to progress, and what they need to work to. And then finally, in leadership development. Like I say, it's a key for everybody who's working for us. And we take this very locally. We take it as a local passion and develop a local system within Great Yarmouth, where I'm based, to look at not just our leadership team, but the whole group in what leadership skills we can take into these people, coaching people, regular performance reviews. How do we develop and bring them through to work within the group and develop and mentor people within their teams? So it's all about bringing people in at the base. Bring them in, develop them through the company, gain their skills, give them control of their own future and their own competencies so they can clearly see how that's set out and how they can grow within the business and grow their skills for the industry. So just a few highlights just to finish with. Our apprenticeship scheme is well awarded. We're really pleased about that. We've got a good share of the UK apprentices for ProServes in Great Yarmouth, 18 of over 50 apprentices working currently through their apprenticeship in Great Yarmouth. And it's really great to see these young people develop through and work through the company and become engineers and leaders within their own rights. Thank you very much.
So, judges, any questions for Alan?
Thank you very much for that really informative presentation. Can you tell us a bit about the impact that you have in local schools? What's your local presence in terms of trying to encourage young people towards ProServe and this great program that you have available to them?
Yeah, well, certainly within the local colleges, within Lowestoft College, we're linked with the apprenticeship scheme there. So there's a huge amount of work that goes on locally with, and all the apprentices are local. They're coming in locally, and they're developing locally from within their groups. We've also got several members of the team who are STEM ambassadors. I'm one myself as well, working within the schools as well locally. So it's really good to see that coming through.
And we have a second question.
Yeah, great presentation. Thanks very much. In terms of the competencies that you've set, are these internal competencies or are they set against national standards?
No, they're very much internal competencies. Now, some of them are based on external standards, but what we're looking for is really what we need to grow as a business, so that each of the skill sets that are set aside in those particular areas are very specific to the product line, that area of working, that type of role for those competencies. So they've been set by the company themselves, and they evolve specifically for that application.
That's great. And just a second question. I mean, you've clearly got a very strong training culture, but I'm sure at some point you will have come across somebody who's reluctant to train. Is that the case? And if so, how did you overcome that?
It's very much the same way that we actually do the training itself. So it's about coaching. It's not about training. It's about sort of helping people through understanding what their needs are so they can understand what their own needs are. And we do that through development. So where people are reluctant to coach or mentor, you know, we encourage them through that coaching technique in what the advantages are for them. We don't want people holding on to their skills thinking, I need to secure my job. They need to see the benefits for them as well as their colleagues on how they do that coaching, how they bring people through. And I must say, everybody embraces that. There's very few people who are sitting back there thinking, oh, no, I don't want to train people.
Thank you. Thank you, judges. We must move on now. So, ladies and gentlemen, Alan Peake.
Thank you.
So for those of you that might not have been here earlier, these are the categories. These are the award sheets. These are your marking papers. So if you can vote now in terms of whether you want for the Skills for Energy Award sponsored by Vattenfall, the Best Proactive Ogden Trust and Royal Academy of Engineering East Coast Energy Internship, or the ProServe Academy. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Innovation Award. Innovation Award is sponsored by Galloper Wind Farm, and I'm delighted to be able to welcome up on stage Andrew Wood of Atam Group. Andrew.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andrew Wood from Atam Group. We're a local company established in Great Yarmouth. So Atam Group, we understand the energy sector. Sorry, I'll start the slide. Okay, 1 second. Okay, we understand the energy sector demands new, innovative solutions in the current market to offer increased efficiency and cost savings. Creating solutions for the energy sector was the reason behind our company's original inception. It was founded by a number of people who had a large deal of operational experience. Given this experience, they believed they could offer a better solution for certain parts of the industry, covering both oil, gas, chemical, nuclear, and renewable sectors. Since the start of our company, a great deal of focus has been on R&D, and currently we have a number of patents pending. Due to the diversity of our company, it's divided into two distinct divisions, services and asset intelligence. Today I'll be presenting our asset intelligence solution. Please allow me to show you a brief video introducing our asset intelligence solution. Okay, so for those not familiar with asset management, what we're talking about is how the energy industry documents the status, condition, and issues work instructions for their assets, and in turn, how that information is communicated to supervisors, managers, and clients. So in order for us to provide a more efficient solution, there has to be an existing method for which we believe we can improve upon. So as you can see, this slide assists to show a representative example for an inspection and maintenance procedure. As you can see, there are a number of steps. Once the work pack has been created, it requires printing and handing to the relevant person. Along with this would be associated documents, technical drawings, and also a plot plan should it be a large plant to find a location. Then the technicians would physically locate the asset and identify the equipment to be inspected and maintained. Next, they would complete the required work and fill in the paper documentation by hand. After the task had been completed, they'd return to the office and hand these documents over to an engineer. He would then enter this information into the software or spreadsheets or whatever equipment that company was using. And then lastly, these updates and reports would be submitted to the relevant persons, whether it's project managers, supervisors, or clients. Now, as you can see, there's a number of steps. A strong reliance on paper documentation, and in turn, several points where errors can occur with manual entry. Our goal was to think by how embracing new technology, we could reduce the number of steps, remove the need for paper, increase productivity, and allow clients real-time updates of what's happening in the field. That's where the idea for ATAM Asset Intelligence was born, using mobile intrinsically safe tablets and cloud storage to change asset management documentation in the future. The next slide represents the same procedure as previous, except this time utilizing our ATAM Asset Intelligence software. Sorry. As you can see straight away, the number of steps has been greatly reduced. The work pack, instead of being printed, can be downloaded to the tablet. This can then guide the technician with the built-in GPS directly to the asset to be maintained. As the work is completed, information entered in the software, live field sign-offs, updates, and real-time reports are made instantly available and visible online around the world to supervisors, managers, and clients. The last step shown is automated, and the information is automatically shared via the cloud. This enables clients to see live status updates, productivity of their workforce, and real-time reports, allowing for total transparency. We believe our solution offers the benefits we originally set out to achieve: increasing productivity, removing the repeated manual entry of information, and greatly reducing paper usage, which in turn saves cost and environmental impact. Further benefits can include reduced meeting times, streamlined handovers in the field, and all whilst providing clients with live updates and a level of transparency never before offered. The next slide just outlines the common services which the software can accommodate. These are the standard modules created specifically to handle common service types and assets. Additionally, the software can be fully customized to suit other services not shown on the list, specific to each energy sector. For example, inspections of monopole and blades for the renewable sector. Next, we come to the device feature. Some of you may be familiar. It's an intrinsically safe tablet, and this is what our software is designed to run on. It's fully certified IEC EX Zone 1 and IP65 rated. It can be used onshore, offshore, and in hazardous environment. Other features is the built-in camera and voice memos. These can be recorded and attached to reports as necessary to offer a greater level of detail. And I'm sure anyone who can worked in a hazardous environment before and required photos to be taken can attest to the fact that it could be a lengthy process with the requirement for permits. This alone can save a great deal of time in the field. And then also mentioned is the built-in GPS. Not only can you locate assets, it can also be used in emergency situations to locate the operators. The next slide outlines some additional software benefits. Another key feature not mentioned is the free access to our browser-based portal. So this way, anywhere in the world, people can see updates and reports, and this is free of charge. And then also one key point is our software and the device is not cloud dependent. So should you lose connectivity, all the packs and drawings can be downloaded to the device. For example, if you're offshore on a rig with no Wi-Fi coverage, you can complete the work. When you go for a coffee or back inside accommodation, you can connect to the Wi-Fi and synchronize all the documentation. Also, another key benefit is that drawings, P&ID, isometrics can be downloaded to the tablet. These are then viewable at any point, saving people in the field a great deal of time as opposed to printing off hard copies. And lastly, a key feature for clients is our software is ERP agnostic. It means data can be exported, transformed, and loaded into all major ERP systems. The last slide I'd like to show you is our business model. We mention this because as well as our product being innovative, we also feel that we offer a fresh approach in the current market. We understand companies don't wish to have the burden of large capex and high initial investment, which is why we offer our hardware and software on a daily fee basis. This includes offering training, on-site support, and pre-engineering to ensure that clients and their technicians are making full usability of the solution. It also allows flexibility, and smaller companies that would otherwise find the cost of asset management software prohibitive. We appreciate that companies adopting new procedures can be hesitant, which is why we offer a 90-day free trial to try and prove to them the measurable benefits of our solution. Thank you.
Justin. Judges, some questions, please.
Thank you very much. Very informative presentation. Question is, what stage within a project or a build do you need to get involved to maximise the benefit of your system?
Depending on the complexity, it would require some pre-engineering. So it really depends on the project size. But to maximise the usage, it'd be nice to have a lead time there before the project started, so we could pre-engineer all the information and it would be already uploaded to the cloud. But I can't give you an answer. It depends on the size of the project. But
so I think my question is, do you need to be involved at the design stage and the build stage, or can you retrospectively apply this?
It can be done at any point in the project, even ongoing projects. Actually, that's a good question. Our key focus is ongoing projects. We believe that going in there and using the pre-engineering to enter into our software, we can improve efficiency and reduce the number of man hours to perform the same task.
Could you give us an indication of the level of customer take-up that you've had so far?
At the moment, I'll be honest, 0. The product has not yet been finished. It was finished, and we weren't satisfied with where we were at. We didn't want a product which would need updates or improvements, which is why, although it was finished, we chose not to roll it out. We have had a lot of interest, but we actually chose to suspend it at that point, and we're now going to be very, very shortly releasing a new version which will have a much higher level of features.
Just a very quick question.
Yes.
How do you ensure the security of the data that you hold?
That's a very good question. Our cloud platform is Microsoft Azure. For those familiar, it's cloud-based services by Windows, and it currently has the largest cybersecurity budget of any project in the world. So it would be more secure than probably any company's cybersecurity in this building. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Andrew Wood. Okay, our next finalist in the innovation category, sponsored by Galloper, is Orange Nassau Energy 1. And coming up on stage now, we have Martin Hurstflut.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Let me see if I can put it up. We are shortlisted for both the Innovation and the Collaboration Award. At least that means I can talk for 16 minutes with 4 minutes of... That's unfortunate, so I'll keep it short. I will only do one presentation. If there are any further questions, or even if we are in the collaboration part and there are further questions, please just don't hesitate. I will be there. When we started with Oranje Nassau over here in the UK, one of the things that we started here, we bought the Sean platform from Shell here in the North Sea. Like every other company in this time of year, we looked to cut cost. Simple as that. One of the things that the low-hanging fruits and one of the major expenditures for us is the ERRV, or the standby vessel. We are unaware with those things. We don't have them in the Netherlands, only for rigs. So we see that on a production platform, it was new for us. It's a major expenditure, and we thought, okay, how can we do something with the cost of the standby vessel? how can we reduce the cost of the standby vessel? How can we reduce the environmental footprint, because we've got a boat there basically sailing around the platform 24 hours a day, wasting diesel, wasting emissions, basically hopefully there to be never used, but should be there in case of an emergency. So that was our objective. How can we reduce the cost? First things, a little bit of a large brainstorm session in our office together with our UK partners and the NL team. At one point it was, why can't we just moor it? It sounds very simple. Everybody said, yeah, nobody ever thought about that. Why can't it just put this anchor out? Well, that's a little bit difficult in the middle of the North Sea, especially with the moving around and etc. So, okay, let's put a mooring buoy in there. How hard can it be? Well, that was a little bit more a problem. As you can see, first of all, it started with a lot of permitting. How can we achieve a mooring buoy in the middle of the North Sea? That was the planning and permitting thing was thereafter being completed. Immediately came out basically, okay, mooring buoy, yeah, but then we need two, because of course we always need to be downwind and downstream of the assets that we want. Okay, well, double everything, 2 mooring buoys. How are we going to design it? It's the first time ever that somebody tried, okay, put a standby vessel in the middle of the North Sea in different types of weather, basically on a buoy. How will it behave itself? Let's do some simulation, a lot of simulation, and we're still in the after test phase. We did the initial testing and everything else, but we are still testing the whole buoy system. Also there to see if we can optimize and even increase the operability of it. Okay, that also done. Then thereafter, the Trinity House said, okay, yeah, but very nice, large yellow big buoy. Can you put a light on it? Well, also done. So it has a nice light on it, even although it is a big standby vessel also there moored. Design was done. Next step was, how are we going to install it? Well, since it's the first one, and we probably over-designed it quite a bit because, well, it is the first one, and we want to be sure of everything. That was quite a large operation. Here you see some photos indeed from the chain and the block, the anchor block underneath, and the buoy itself with the small light. Unfortunately, not a light. So, how is it innovation and how does it benefit us? Well, first of it, of course, it saves a lot of fuel and thereby a lot of CO2 emissions. The second one, it saves costs. Our standby vessel supplier came back to us and said, well, if we're going to moor it, that's going to be basically, we did all the calculations, it won't need its main engines for about 70% of the time. We can give you a serious reduction in our day rate. Well, perfect, due to less maintenance, less damage on the engines, and of course, the whole thing thereby basically paying for itself in about 8 months. Well, with a future field, hopefully for at least 10 to 15 years, easy win. The other thing is, indeed, and that was a very major one, of course, is it still a standby vessel, and how fast, how well can it operate its daily tasks? Yes, we did a lot of testing on there, even did some field trials on, well, all the official field trials have been executed again, so that's 1 dummy in the water, 2 dummies in the water, 20 dummies in the water, and everything has to be rescued within the standby vessel within a certain time. All of those trials have been completed, and for now we have started using the mooring buoy operationally, I think since July. So it has been operational now for 3 months. Well, as you can think, with the current weather, of course, it's not on the buoy. Other than that, we see indeed that it's about 65 to 70% of the time it can be moored. Originally, we had some hesitation also from the boat itself, saying, okay, yeah, what are we going to do now? But after really the trials and the testing, the crew actually likes it, which also is a big benefit. There's less vibration on the boat itself, so that gives a little bit more leeway for the crew. and basically they have a little bit of a more relaxed situation on board. Now we're going to talk, of course, about how is it innovative. It's simple, yes, but then again, the best ideas often are simple. Nobody has ever thought about it, at least not in the North Sea and the southern North Sea. It is adaptable. I mean, it's open. We didn't patent it or anything, so basically everybody who wants to use it, just contact us. We're more than free to open up all the data, and you can basically copy it as and when you want. It's not only for the oil industry. I mean, also for the wind industry, etc. Put a mooring buoy in, and your wind cat or your suppliers also basically can just moor on the buoy the moment they are not necessary, or the moment they are putting their people on board of a windmill, and in the evening putting them off again. So that's why we think it is innovative. The collaboration part, of course, also that will come a little bit later, but immediately also, we didn't do it alone. We used a lot of our partners. Both, of course, the HSE, we had a lot of talks and discussions with them in how to do the trials, how to get it accepted, but also everybody in the engineering departments and third-party engineerings. Our Glomar, of course, who is the standby vessel operator. A lot of people work to make it happen. And the last thing, basically, sometimes the best ideas are the simplest ones. Any questions? That was already my 8 minutes.
Martin, thank you. Judges, we'll have some questions for this, and I'll get Martin back on stage because it's obviously the same categories going twice, so we'll bring him back on the stage later for other questions. But your first questions.
You identified some of those barriers to the innovation sort of being applied. How challenging were they to overcome from your point of view?
Pretty much, because the biggest barrier, of course, it's a new concept where there is a lot of unknowns about the behavior on a boat in full sea, in the middle of the North Sea, lying on a buoy while still needing to do standby vessel tasks. So we did a lot of modeling there, and right now we are very conservative in our initial set of targets that we have. So basically, at the moment, we probably over-designed both the anchor point and the buoy itself, and we are limited still to a wave height of about 1.5 meter. And we are still, we've got to still have measurement tools on the boats to see how it behaves itself, if it is, because the front bit is connected, so the back will start sliding. What kind of forces are there exactly on the mooring buoy, and if we can increase that wave height limit. But that is the biggest one at the moment, yes.
Thank you.
Martin, there are plenty of other operators in the southern North Sea that have standby vessels in the more traditional approach. Have you started to share your insights and your innovation with those companies, those other operators in the southern North Sea?
I think most of the operators are aware. We are not actively talking about it yet. We also first want to do the remaining bit of the testing and see how far we can indeed, if we can increase the limit. Also through Simon here, it's open basically, and everybody who wants it, just give us a call.
Martin Hurst, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. So now, once again, it's time to take your voting sheets and decide which of the two innovations you're going to vote for. It's the ATAM Group Asset Intelligence Software or your Anju Nasu Energy ERRV mooring buoy. And as I say, Martin will be back with us later on again under the Southern North Sea Rejuvenation and Collaboration Award to answer a couple of questions from the judges under that category as well. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, delighted to say we have the Trade Apprenticeship of the Year. Two finalists for you this year. This event is sponsored by ECITB. Thank you very much indeed for their support for this. First up on stage, we have Aquaterra Energy, Edward Mattocks. Edward.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Teddy Mattox, and I've recently completed my apprenticeship with Aquaterra Energy, and I've been given a permanent position with the company. I'm 22 years old, and I live in Beccles. I went to the Sir John Lehman High School, where I completed my GCSEs. From there, I went to Lowestoft College and completed my BTEC Level 3 Extended National Diploma and achieved a triple grade distinction. Decided not to go to university. I wanted to take up an apprenticeship with a mechanical bias. Aquaterra was one of the companies that came into the college to advertise their apprenticeship, which very much appealed to me. After speaking to one of their apprentices, I decided to apply. My first year for Aquaterra, I had to go back and complete my Level 2 MVQ in mechanical maintenance, which taught me very valuable hands-on skills which complemented the theory-based BTEC. The next year, I completed the work-based MVQ Level 3 Extended Diploma in Engineering Maintenance. Alongside this, with approval from Aquaterra and a student loan, I started a foundation degree in Operations Engineering. I'm due to complete this next summer. Outside of work and studies, I like to keep fit, play sport and snowboard. I play cricket and football for Bungay Town, and I really enjoy the social aspects of these activities. So, as an assistant workshop technician at Aquaterra Energy, my duties and responsibilities included performing service and maintenance tasks on offshore equipment, carrying out factory acceptance tests on equipment, which involves testing new equipment, ensuring they meet design specifications and functional requirements. I perform pressure tests and load tests on equipment, which involves using hydraulic and pneumatic tools. I operate the forklift, loading and unloading vehicles, checking and inspecting goods in. With the head office located away from the yard, I work closely and communicate effectively with the projects team. Aquaterra have provided me with training in forklift driving, abrasive wheels, and the assembly and tightening of bolted connections. So Aquaterra currently has around 80 permanent employees. It is a friendly company to work for. Aquaterra often organises and participates in social and sports events. This year, I was part of the Dragon Boat racing competition, which we won. And I also played cricket for the Aquaterra team. During my first cricket match for the company, I actually managed to bowl out the managing director who's on the judging panel, first ball of his innings. So I've lost a vote there, definitely. Luckily enough, he didn't send me my P45. In the industry, Aquaterra provide world-class, award-winning and bespoke offshore solutions. Some of our products include offshore structures such as Sea-Swift platforms, riser systems, hydraulic systems, and our service and rental departments, including tension rings, running tools, camera systems, and coal cutters. So when I first joined Aquaterra, the coal cutters were a piece of equipment which frustrated our offshore technicians. Due to them having many various mechanical components, the cutter suffered with repeated issues during offshore ops, and in some cases caused downtime. So a coal cutter is a piece of equipment used offshore to perform safe, quick, and clean cuts on casing. It's essentially a mobile machine and product. My initial interest and first-hand experience came when a coal cutter returned from a job offshore. On this particular job, the cutting process had taken over 5 hours and gone through 9 cutting blades. It was evident that the cause for some of these issues and failing components on the coal cutting equipment was due to the harsh environment which they work in. I took personal responsibility to look into the reasons and failing components and how they could be prevented. I worked on producing a much more effective planned and preventative maintenance procedure which should be followed upon a cutter returning offshore and before going offshore again. Part of this procedure included introducing an internal setup and functioning testing process. I soon discovered that taking more time to efficiently set up the cutter would save a lot more time and less issues when running them. So this included performing a cut in the workshop whilst trying to replicate the offshore situation as close as possible. The procedure includes in detail vital measurements, alignments and steps which need to be taken to ensure the setup is correct. I used the challenge of the cold cutters as part of my job report in my MVQ level 3, which is when I recorded the procedures. So early on this year, I followed these procedures when preparing a cutter for a project. The offshore technician came into the workshop to go through the setup process to ensure he was happy. Incidentally, this was the same technician that went on the job which took 5 hours, although the cut on this job only took 1.5 hours, which was a significant improvement to previous jobs. This obviously resulted in saving the client time and money. I've also recently successfully completed a job which needed 6 cold cutters within 3 weeks. My line manager approached me and gave me personal responsibility to preparing these cutters physically within the time frame and completing all the relevant documentation that needed to be done prior to loadout. Further development. As the next step in my personal development, I've undertaken my offshore training with Aquaterra. I've recently, last week, returned from a 12-day job in Norway, where a jack-up rig had skidded over a platform to begin the process of drilling new wells. Aquaterra were providing the conductor for these wells. The experience I gained included running disposable drill bushings and fitting stop collars and fixed blade centralizers to the conductor when it was being run. The standard of living and health and safety of Norway on a Norway job was exceptional. My other offshore experience to date consisted of 2 trips to Egypt, which compared to Norway, as you can see from the photos, the standards in Egypt were not quite as developed. That is in the client's yard. Yeah, not pretty. The work involved putting a subsea riser system provided by Aquaterra and working in the client's yard, carrying out maintenance on the backloaded equipment. I then returned to the country to run the riser system again. The skills I used on the job included operating the subsea connector hydraulic power unit, or HPU, along with the umbilical spooler. I operated the tension system, HPU, and a camera system. The next step for me is to expand my knowledge of the oil and gas industry through the Opito learning modules and gain more offshore experience and eventually become an offshore technician for Aquaterra. I've already been granted partial funding by the ECITB to finish my foundation degree. I would then like to complete a full degree through the Open University, with eventually having the possibility of eventually moving into the project management side of the company. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
Well done, Edward.
Thank you.
Well done, Edward. Judges, some questions, please.
Thanks for a very comprehensive presentation there, Teddy. Very, very good, excellent. I think you've answered all the questions that I had, bar one. What message would you give to youngsters that are considering starting an apprenticeship?
To always push to learn more within what you do in industry, and always take opportunities to learn through college, whether it's to do with industry or not. You always want further development, think in the future. Like, I don't need a degree right now for what I'm doing, but if I want to walk it, go into project management or project engineering, then that's what you will need to go into an office job.
And we have another question, I think, from one of our judges.
Has it turned out how you expected it to be when you started? And if not, why not?
I wasn't really sure, because obviously I've always been interested in working offshore, and there's obviously a wide variety of jobs you can have offshore. But I was very much interested in the opportunities that Aquaterra gave of travelling and the wide variety of which the tooling and the equipment we use offshore. So we don't just specify in one area, but we cover a wide variety of equipment. And it's not just in the North Sea, it's all over around the world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you very much.
Edward Mattox.
Cheers.
Well done, Edward. So I've been checking my phone on a regular basis, just seeing people are doing a few tweets. Please do still keep tweeting at #EEGR Awards. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have Bruce Newman Pipework, Daniel Lark. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Lark.
We've got a two-man attack. Okay, I'm Graham Newman. I'm the Managing Director of Bruce Newman, and this is Daniel Lark, who until recently was employed as a project control apprentice. And I say recently because he successfully completed his apprenticeship earlier in the year and is now working as a junior contracts engineer on a client site. Between us, we'd like to tell you about the benefits that Daniel has brought to our business, and a little bit more about Bruce Newman to begin with. Bruce Newman are a second-generation family business which started in 1970 when my father, Brian Newman, and his business partner, John Bruce, set up their pipe-fitting business working at a fuel storage terminal in Essex and also in East London. Since their first projects in the energy sector, the business has gone from strength to strength, and we now employ over 120 people across the eastern region. The character of the business may have changed in that time, but the characteristics of our people remain the same. We all take pride in doing a good job safely, and we work hard to keep our customers happy. I'm proud that our employees have a reputation for being able to pull rabbits out of the hat, and we look forward for that same work ethic in every new employee, whether they're an apprentice or a seasoned hand. I'm also proud of our approach to training and development. At Bruce Newman, we want to create a working environment where everyone can reach their potential, and this helps us to hire and keep hold of some very talented people. Apprentices are a very vital part of our HR strategy, and we normally take 2 or 3 apprentices each year. In 2015, to help develop our management capacity, we employed Daniel here as one of the region's first project control apprentices. We already had a career path in mind for Daniel before he started with us. Our engineers follow a very defined progression route within the business, which seems reasonably straightforward. But this simple straight-line progression hides the huge variety of work that our engineers undertake and the broad range of skills that they need. We expect our contract engineers to be responsible for all elements of their projects because we found that this gives them a clear sense of ownership and our clients have a single point of contact throughout the job. But to have that end-to-end involvement, our engineers need a very broad set of skills, as you can see. Our plan for Daniel was for him to start at the beginning of this path and help him develop the skills that he would need to become a Bruce Newman contract engineer. The project control apprenticeship route was chosen as the most appropriate for our needs, but as a best fit rather than perfect fit. And we knew that we would have to supplement college work with our own training. This provided our biggest learning point of the apprenticeship, because there was a slight mismatch between the college elements and the working environment. Unfortunately, this affected Daniel's performance in the qualification during the first year, and he struggled to relate the theories that he was learning to the practice that he was putting in place. This put us in a situation we needed to recover from if the apprenticeship was to be a success. It's this recovery and the way it took place which is the biggest reason for Daniel's nomination as Apprentice of the Year. We all know that not every path can run smoothly, and Daniel's nomination is about as much for his tenacity and determination as it is for gaining his qualification and his performance within our business. We expected a reasonably consistent performance throughout the 2 years of Daniel's apprenticeship. However, what we got looked more like this. You can see we were expecting a slight drop in performance at the beginning of the course as Daniel and Bruce Newman got to know each other, and as the course developed. That's not unusual. The actual situation in the first year, where Daniel wasn't progressing in his coursework as expected, came as a shock to us, especially as he was performing well in the workplace and delivering exactly what we wanted. We sat down with Daniel and his college tutors to identify exactly what was happening, and it became clear that we needed to ask more from Daniel than we had been, something that we as a business taking on a project control apprentice was learning ourselves. So we changed, and Daniel changed as a result. We started pushing Daniel to work in areas of the business we wouldn't normally expect an apprentice to do, supporting projects on site, taking responsibility for procurement and cost control on smaller jobs, and managing smaller fabrication jobs from beginning to end. We pushed him further, offering Daniel the opportunity to work on one of our largest projects to date, based away from home in Essex. not quite as far away as Norway. Mind you, probably just about as lowly developed as Egypt, perhaps. Daniel readily accepted the challenge, even though it meant he had to stay away from home several nights a week, and the maturity that Daniel has shown as ambassador for Bruce Newman, both in and out of the workplace, is absolutely remarkable. Daniel's performance at work changed quickly, and it reflected in his performance in his MVQ. His achievement levels improved and his progress recovered. By the end of 2016, as you can see, his performance was slightly better than we had originally anticipated, and the step change had been very dramatic. We continue to ask more and to offer Daniel more opportunities to develop. At the completion of his apprenticeship in May this year, Daniel's progress has been better than any of us could have imagined. He is now performing at the level we would expect someone who has been in the job for twice as long as he has, and he has demonstrated maturity and responsibility far beyond his years. We've all seen the changes in him, and Daniel appreciates these changes too, I hope. And I'd like to hand over to Daniel now so he can tell you his experience in his own words.
As Graham has already said, completing my apprenticeship wasn't easy, but I think that I've changed a lot in the past 2 years from the person I was when I started. The biggest change I've noticed has been in my maturity, which I think has a lot to do with the fact that I'm lodging away from home and I've had to grow up quickly. When you don't have your mum to look after you, things are a bit different at home. I enjoy the independence and the fact that I'm responsible for my own actions inside and outside of work. Realising this was one of the reasons why I was able to improve in my coursework, and extra responsibilities that I've been given at Bruce Newman really brought home the fact that I needed to make sure that I hit my deadlines and raised my game. I've also gained much more confidence to question things and to manage people on projects that I'm running. I'm currently working on site as part of a team, and I've been running some smaller projects directly for the client. I'm constantly speaking to the client and with our director who's in charge of that site, and I have my own operatives on site to look after. That's a massive change from how I was when I started, when I was too nervous to go into the workshop and ask questions. I'm looking forward to running more of my own jobs in the future. Having responsibilities is the most exciting part of the job for me. I also enjoy the site activity more than the office-based part of the job. In the office you can see the drawings, but on the site you actually see those drawings turn into real life and see how it's done.
Thank you. Daniel's underselling himself slightly there. The amount of responsibility he's taken on. Normally, we would only expect a junior contracts engineer to help others run projects and providing support under close supervision. Daniel's grasp of the job has meant that he has much more autonomy than we would normally expect him to do so, and this has enabled us to take on more work as a result. To put it into figures, to date, we believe Daniel has directly saved us approximately £10,000 in management costs and generated in excess of £50,000 of additional turnover as a result of his maturity, reliability and the positive attitude to his work. It doesn't stop there though. As well as running his own jobs, Daniel was supporting our activities on one of our biggest ever projects and regularly represents Bruce Newman at progress meetings, safety briefings and day-to-day interaction with some of our clients' most senior stakeholders. He's impressed everybody, as you can see from this testimonial from one of our clients. Daniel's integrated into our business much better than we expected. He's performing at a much higher level and professional ability than we had anticipated. He's become profitable when we would expect him to be investing in his development, and that's why we believe that he should be Trade Apprentice of the Year. We hope you agree with us.
Well done. Well done. Judges, do you have your microphone and are you ready with a question, please?
Hi there. Thank you for a fascinating story. It's a really uplifting story that you've told us there. And I was just wondering if there was something in particular, Daniel, that happened that made you turn this around from your perspective.
I think, obviously, I said earlier about when Graham offered me the opportunity to go and work on this massive project down in Essex. Obviously, I was spending quite a bit of time away from home, which obviously made me realise like I needed to up my game because Graham set very sort of deadlines for me to complete my MVQ, so I knew I needed to meet those deadlines to obviously not only impress Graham and obviously impress our clients as they could see my progression. So yeah, I'd probably say lodging away and obviously I said earlier about the maturity, so that was probably the point.
Thanks for the presentation, both really, really very, very good. In the interest of fairness, I guess, same question as I asked Teddy. What message would you give to youngsters considering the starting of an apprenticeship?
I would probably say the apprenticeship is a fantastic route to go. Obviously, you get the college, the sort of theory behind it and stuff like that, but then you actually get to take that theory you've learned in a classroom with other like apprentices or people in college, and you take that onto site and you can show people that have been doing the job 20, 30 odd years how I've done it and how the apprenticeships helped me to get in this position. So I'd probably say that obviously the site work and showing clients and people doing their jobs for 20, 30 years is probably the sort of good route to go to.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Lark and Graham Newman. Well done, well done. And it's so inspiring to see young men coming forward in this way and being able to tell them their experience and sharing it with you from the stage up here. Quite incredible. Can we just have another hand for those two young gentlemen for doing that? Well done. Quite inspiring. Let's hope next year we may see a few females as well, which would be nice to get a few more females involved in this industry as well. Would be a wonderful new initiative for both EEGR and for our industry as a whole. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, you're aware that we have 4 special interest groups, or SIGs, as we call them. And this is another one of our SIGs. This is the Southern North Sea Rejuvenation SIG, which we run in association with the Oil and Gas Authority and Oil and Gas UK. And this award is looking at collaboration and how people work together within our industry for the benefit of maximising economic recovery in the Southern North Sea. So this is the Southern North Sea Rejuvenation SIG Collaboration Award. And first up, we have ASCO with their shared R&D warehouse facility. Ladies and gentlemen, ASCO.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Simon Turner, and I'm Head of Oil and Gas Development for ASCO. What I'd like to do is thank EEGR for giving ASCO the opportunity to present our nomination, which is for collaboration, and it's for the provision of a shared warehousing facility in Great Yarmouth. So a bit of history about who ASCO is, who we are. And we are currently celebrating our 50th anniversary, having been created back in 1967. I go around places and I get asked quite a lot of questions in terms of what does ASCO stand for. Well, back in 1967, it actually stood for Aberdeen Service Company. We started off as a business up there providing local services to the emerging force that oil and gas was, certainly in upstream, and we've evolved over the past 50 years to where we are today. So what are ASCO today? As you can see there, we employ 2,000 people worldwide, right across the full scope of the globe. You know, we provide safe and efficient services to the oil field services, both onshore and offshore. Our mandate really is to provide this safety. There's nothing more of a priority than safety in order to allow for our services and our customers to perform their duties to the maximum of their abilities whilst maintaining good cost control. So cost as well is extremely important to ourselves. We support more clients in more locations than any other service provider. And in Great Yarmouth, we employ a number of 33 people to provide a number of clients vital services in order to keep their operations going. Talk about collaboration, and it's a phrase and a term that's been used widely over the last few years. And why do we use it? Well, back in 2013, the Secretary of State had a look around the industry and saw the need for a bit of a review and some research. So he enlisted an expert, Mr. Sir Ian Wood, to go in there and do some research on behalf of the industry. And that not just took on the challenges of today, but also the significant challenges of the future. That actual report was delivered to us in 2014, and we had the benefit of Sir Ian Wood coming down to one of our EEGR events back around about that time. And he came about and he talked about some of the findings of the report and also putting forward some of the recommendations that he'd put forward to the government and the Secretary of State in order to move the industry forward. And there were 3 clear requirements, one of which was to create a new strategy, maximising economic recovery for the UK. He also recommended that we set up an independent regulatory authority. The Oil and Gas Authority was created as a result of this recommendation. And we all know, we've all benefited from the significant changes that the Oil and Gas Authority has provided the industry. It also suggested, if not recommended, the collaboration, the working together, and not just oil and gas companies, but also the local supply chain, that is local and also beyond nationally as well. So extremely important. And that's something that we as a supply chain company really took on board going forward. So what we had to do, we had to come up with solutions for our clients, and one of which we came up with a solution that not just benefited one client, but 2 clients, who were finding it considerably difficult to maintain services in an ever-challenging economic environment. As in most cases, the best solutions are always the simplest ones. And it was really the relocation of one service facility down to another one to create a shared warehousing facility. The 2 companies in question were Centrica Storage, based up at a facility in Killingholme, 16 years old. We've been operating that quite a considerable amount of time. And then the ConocoPhillips facility down in Viking, which is on South Deans Road in Great Yarmouth. So the challenge was, how do we continue servicing these companies throughout ever-challenging climate whilst providing cost savings, not just for today, but also for tomorrow? So what we did, we come up with an idea of moving one facility down to the other facility and sharing it. As a result of this, we were awarded 2 contracts that were delivering savings to each client in excess of £1 million each throughout the duration of the contracts. And those awards were just provided to us within the last 6 months, and we're working on the transition plan from one to the other. So significant opportunity for ourselves, full collaboration, moving things forward sustainably and cost efficiently forward, and that would be to the benefit of the East Anglian region as well and the local supply chain. So here's the slide on the Viking facility. Obviously, we had challenges, a lot of challenges. We had to convince both operators that this was the way forward, and we had to convince them that in practice, we're going to deliver the savings that on paper were there to be seen by all. So demonstrable savings was absolutely apparent to get towards the delivery of this service award. So we've got a shared facility now in Great Yarmouth. What we've done, we've shifted ConocoPhillips from the whole to one side of the facility, and we're making way for Centrica Storage, and we're partway through a transition period at the moment to make that happen. So in order to make this happen, we've not just had to engage collaboratively with the 2 operators, we've also had a number of key stakeholders, and all have had to have been engaged, not just throughout the process, but leading up to the process, and they will still have to be engaged post-process as well. And I've got a few points here whereby we've had to engage a lot of these stakeholders. Health and safety, number 1. We have to deliver health and safety, within our services, without compromising any of the obligations of both companies or anybody that would be, as a result of what we do. Communication, really, really important. We need to keep clear lines of communication between the 2 clients and also between the supply chain. Bearing in mind, we've got one supply chain in North Lincolnshire, which will change to become a larger supply chain in Yarmouth and in East Anglia. Time management, really, really important. Management of change. Change always happens. That's one thing that doesn't change, is that change happens. And to ensure that we manage change as it happens, operators are doing different things that maybe weren't viable a couple of months ago. So we have to embrace that change and put it into the plan. There's an offshore impact. It's changing. Boats will be coming out of Great Yarmouth. Our first boat is due the 2nd of October into Great Yarmouth. Previously, that would have gone out of Immingham. And as you can understand, there's quite a significant amount of communication needed in that respect. Quayside services were up at Henderson Quay in Immingham. They're now going to be delivered out of Great Yarmouth through the ASCO main base down there. Road transport, extremely important. One of the major savings to Centrica Storage, who, despite having this facility up in Immingham, but they were still very reliant on what we've got down in Great Yarmouth. So we're significantly changing the carbon footprint of Immingham by having that facility down in Great Yarmouth. Other supply chain vendors, food and such and so forth, also need to be managed so that we're not supplying facilities. We're not supplying from facilities in North Lincolnshire, we're providing them from East Anglia as well. And obviously, last but no means least, the people that are involved in our operations, so HR. So we've gone around the way of utilising the resources we've got in Immingham to further support Centrica at the gas terminal and their offices at Headon, to minimise the impact of them, to look after them going forward. So in terms of value to the business, just to round everything up, it's collaboration. It secured 10 jobs for Great Yarmouth. It will also lead to potentially another 10 jobs being created going forward. We're helping the operations companies to maximise the lifetime of their offshore installations within the North Sea. We're relocating to Great Yarmouth, and that in itself will significantly reduce the carbon footprint of one of the operators, Centrica Storage. By doing this as well, we've clearly demonstrated over £1 million worth of savings to each of the companies, operating companies, to be delivered over the period of the contracts. And what we'll be doing is utilising some of the tools from Oil and Gas Authority, such as the measurement tool for collaboration, also to work with that as well. So that's for me. Thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions.
Simon Turner. Well done, Simon. Judges, some questions, please.
Thank you very much, Simon. That was a great presentation. So who initiated the collaboration discussion, and were there were there any competitive conflicts that you had to resolve?
There was lots of conflicts, lots of challenge. It was something that the director of S&S, Glenn Hurren, it was his idea. He forged it back in 2015. We've got real mature contracts in place with Centrica and ConocoPhillips. There's a lot of investment there in terms of personnel and everything like that. And clearly, we as a member of the supply chain were under a lot of pressure to deliver savings to maximise the lifetime assets, for these clients. So yeah, we're under a lot of competitive situations, and also these awards were as a result of competitive tender as well. So they went out to market, and these innovations allowed us to unlock the savings, which allowed the awards to be made.
Say you initiated the discussion?
ASCO, this was an ASCO initiative, okay. Yes, that we took to the client.
Thank you very much.
Another question, please, judges.
And again, thank you as well for that great presentation. In bringing the two companies together under into one warehouse, yes. Have you attempted to encourage further collaboration by maybe looking for common stock items between the two companies and therefore introduce more efficiencies into their stock holdings, if you like?
Absolutely, yes. As we stand today, we're 70% of the way through the transition plan, which is to relocate the Centrica Storage facility into Great Yarmouth. And already we've introduced a third company into that facility as well. So it won't be a dual shared facility, it's going to be a tri-shared facility as well. And we've got other opportunities there which are on the table, but what we've got to do is make sure that we deliver what we've got on the table in terms of these savings which will be unlocked by this. But certainly there's a lot of interest out there for doing this and widening the scope.
Thank you, judges. Now, thank you. First of all, can we just thank Simon Turner from ASCO? Thank you, Simon. Cheers. Well done. And in the interest of fairness, I'd like to welcome back up onto stage Martin Hurstflut from Orange Nassau Energy. So, judges, if you want to go back through your folder and just have a look at Martin's presentation from earlier on the ERRV mooring buoy, and if I could have a couple of questions from you on that particular initiative, please, gentlemen. So first question from our judges on the ERRV mooring buoy. And this time we're looking at the collaboration aspects of it, of course, on this occasion. So, judges, do we have a question? They're stumped.
That's the easy one.
They're stumped.
Well, I can elaborate a little bit further. I think at the moment we are in collaboration with, of course, all our suppliers, engineering firms, and between the UK and the Dutch offices. But hopefully, and that's also something that Simon here is involved, we can stand here and do some collaboration within all the SNS operators and roll out a few more of these boys.
I was going to ask exactly that, Martin. What other ideas have you got? You've obviously spent some great time brainstorming and coming up with an innovative concept around your standby vessel. What next?
Easy question.
Easy question. Well, next, of course, the standby vessel, the mooring buoy, is now being rolled out. I think one of the next, and that's also in the SIG group, is collaboration of our the supply chain, the whole supply chain, just like Asko already touched upon. But indeed, we are trying, or we are basically also sharing our supply vessels. At the moment through the Netherlands via the Peterson group in Den Helder, which is basically does a complete milk run around the North Sea and also dropping off at the Sean platform. We are now in the process. I think everybody has received the information, and hopefully on a short notice everybody also receives the contract paperwork, that we can also at least set up a well, they call it Uber for supply vessels, but at least that we can start sharing our supply vessels from Yarmouth.
I think we've stimulated another question from Paddy as well.
Yeah, Martin, you know, I mean, we talk a lot in the industry about collaboration and is it happening and is it not happening. So maybe in your case, can you give us an insight as to, did you just collaborate, or what drove the need for you to collaborate? Why did you need to collaborate? What was driving you to do that?
With respect to the standby vessel and the mooring buoy, we needed to collaborate because we needed the common expertise that not only we had, but also our supply, the whole supply chain there. So engineering firms, but also the standby vessel owners. They had that knowledge in-house and we didn't, so therefore we collaborate and come up with a better plan, reducing the footprint and reducing our cost. That was the main thing with the mooring buoy, and indeed we reduce our footprint by about 670 tons of CO2 a year, which is substantial. With respect to the further planning, we are collaborating to see our supply chain specifically. That is, well, we are used to it in the Netherlands, and we try also within the SIG to incorporate basically best of both worlds. So we try to steal the best ideas both from the Netherlands and from the UK, incorporate them and roll them out, and thereby sustaining and get a sustainable future for the Sean and other platforms.
One final question then, thanks.
Pardon the pun, but was it all plain sailing, or was there an element of difficulty in your collaboration with your supply chain?
I think we started about 3 times over from a very simple, yeah, we can do this, basically also because we had no idea what to do. So it was definitely not plain sailing, but nothing that couldn't be overcome, and that's why, you know, when you sit down together and start thinking outside of the box and just come up with a plan, go back to the engineering firms, make sure the plan works, adapt the plan a few times, and finalize it.
Thank you very much indeed. Martin Hurstveld. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you should have your forms in front of you. You need to make your next 2 selections, which of course it was the Trade Apprentice of the Year Award, sponsored by ECITB. The choice was between Edward Mattox of Aquaterra Energy and Daniel Lark of Bruce Newman Pipework. And then you also need to then go on to tick the SNS Rejuvenation SIG Collaboration Award. Your choice there is either ASCO UK Shared R&D Warehouse Facility or the Orange NASA Energy ERRV Mooring Buoy. So that's the SNS Rejuvenation SIG Collaboration Award, sponsored by Oil and Gas Authority, the OGA. Okay, so that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the home run now, and just to say that make sure you fill in your voting forms. My team, if you would be ready to collect those voting forms from the doors here and from the doors at the back, that would be wonderful if you'd be so kind. Ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing range and variety of presentations showing innovation, new ideas, collaboration, and real enthusiasm for our industry. And our incredible industry continues to strive to reduce costs and to maximize output and maximizing economic recovery, both in terms of wind and in terms of offshore oil and gas. We've seen and heard about the next generation of employees from our industry. And for those of you that are leaving, thank you very much indeed. We hope you enjoyed it today. For those of you who are staying, join us now for downstairs in the marquee, where we'll have a drinks reception for you whilst the judges deliberate. So judges, you can disappear to your judging den now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I hope you've enjoyed this afternoon. And as I say, those of you staying for dinner, come and join us now for a drink down in the marquees. Those of you going, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.